There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Wow, Nelson Mandela really hit the nail on the head right out of the gate with that one, didn't he? It perfectly captures our core theme for today, the absolute danger of playing it safe. When we choose to play small, when we avoid taking risks simply because we're afraid, we actively rob ourselves of the vibrant, expansive life we're actually built for. So if you've ever felt the urge to just settle, consider this your official wake-up call. Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped you're hanging out with us today because we're about to dive into a profoundly powerful message that completely flips the script on how society traditionally views failure. We're talking about how to fall forward and how to literally reframe failure so it becomes your own personal compass. It's all about looking at defeat not as some massive step backward, but as the exact momentum you need to propel yourself into your true potential. So let's get into it. Section 1, don't fall back, fall forward. Think back to your own experiences in school, or maybe when you were picking a major, or just figuring out what you wanted to do with your life. I'm willing to bet that some really well-meaning folks, parents, teachers, mentors, told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Right? It's just classic advice. The whole safety net approach, having a solid backup plan in case you completely wipe out. But our source material today challenges that conventional wisdom right to its core. Instead of falling back, we need to adopt a fall-forward philosophy. The speaker makes this brilliant point. The whole concept of falling backward just doesn't make any sense if you're trying to achieve greatness. If you're going to fall, and let's be real, you absolutely will, why on earth would you fall backward? You want to fall forward, because at least that way, you get to see exactly what you're going to hit. You embrace the risk, you step outside the box, and you keep your momentum moving forward, even when you stumble. Which brings us to Section 2, the inevitability of failure. We really need to transition our mindset here. Stop looking at failure as this rare, embarrassing accident and start seeing it as an absolute, non-negotiable requirement for monumental success. It isn't just a possibility, it's baked right into the recipe of achievement. Dreams without goals are just dreams, right? And to hit those goals, you've got to be willing to fail big. Take a look at the number 2,600. Any guesses what that stands for? That is the exact number of times the baseball legend Reggie Jackson struck out during his career. 2,600 times. That's literally the most strikeouts in the entire history of baseball. But here's the fascinating part. Nobody talks about the strikeouts, do they? People don't remember him for missing the ball over 2,000 times. They remember him for the home runs. The sheer, massive volume of failure was just the toll he had to pay to become a legend. And this brutally honest reality, it applies to pretty much everything. Take Thomas Edison. The guy conducted 1,000 failed experiments. 1,000. But the 1,001st experiment, boom, the light bulb. So the really crucial takeaway here is that every single failed experiment is literally one step closer to success. When you fall forward, you're just systematically crossing out the pathways that don't work, which drops you right at the doorstep of the one that does. So let me hit you with a hard but honestly deeply empathetic truth. You will fail. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You are gonna suck at something. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Now, sure, that might not sound like the fluffy, uplifting stuff you usually hear at a graduation speech, but it is the most honest thing you could ever hear. You have got to embrace it because it is inevitable. If you spend your whole life tiptoeing around trying to avoid this truth, you are never ever going to take the risks you need to do something truly worthwhile. Moving on to Section 3, Ghosts of Unfulfilled Potential. Okay, so we've covered the mechanics of failure, but what about the tragic cost of inaction? Like, what actually happens when you're so terrified of failing that you just never take the leap? Well, the consequences of that are infinitely heavier than the temporary sting of a setback. The source material paints this incredibly visceral, honestly pretty chilling picture, which we call the deathbed metaphor. Just imagine for a second, you're lying on your deathbed, and standing all around your bed are ghosts. But these aren't just standard spooky ghosts. No, these are the ghosts of your unfulfilled potential. They're the ghosts of those brilliant ideas you never acted on. The ghosts of the unique, incredible talents you were given but just never used, all because you were too scared to fall forward. Imagine them standing there, looking down at you, just angry, disappointed, and upset. Then these ghosts look at you with those disappointed eyes and they say, "We came to you because you could have brought us to life, and now we have to go to the grave together." Whew, let that sink in for a minute. That is the heavy, permanent, crushing weight of playing it safe, letting your unique gifts literally die with you because you just didn't have the guts to try. Look, a failed experiment, that's temporary. But the regret of taking all that unfulfilled potential to the grave, that lasts forever. Section 4. Failure is your compass. Let's bring this back down to earth and look at practical reality. How does failing actually work in your favor? Well, it turns out sometimes falling flat on your face is the absolute best way to figure out exactly where you're supposed to go. When we say fall forward, we mean failure actively steers the ship. Take the speaker's own messy academic journey at Fordham University, for example. He started out in pre-med. He took this class called cardiac morphogenesis. He couldn't read the word, couldn't say the word, and he definitely couldn't pass the class. So he fails out of that, right? Decides to pivot to pre-law. Nope. Then he jumps over to journalism. With absolutely zero academic focus, his grades completely tanked to a 1.8 GPA, at which point the university very politely suggested he might want to take some time off. It gracefully illustrates this simple truth. Life is never a straight, predictable line. It's a whole series of messy pivots, driven by figuring out exactly what you're not meant to do. And you know, that 1.8 GPA, it led straight to rock bottom, March 27, 1975. The speaker is 20 years old, at his absolute lowest point, helping his mom out at her beauty shop in Mount Vernon. He kept catching the eye of this older woman, an elder in the town, who was sitting under a hairdryer. Finally, she flips the dryer off and delivers this spiritual prophecy that would change his life forever. She looks at this struggling, failing 20-year-old kid and tells him, "You are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people." Literally out of his deepest, darkest failure came his ultimate direction in life. And that compass of failure, it keeps guiding you, sometimes for decades. Early on in his acting career, he auditions for a Broadway musical. It was the perfect role for him, except for one massive, glaring issue. He couldn't sing. So naturally, he totally bombed the audition and didn't get the part. But he didn't fall back. He walked right out of there, prepped for the next audition, prayed, and just kept on failing and preparing for the next 30 years. And where did he end up? Starring in the massive hit play Fences on Broadway. And the absolute kicker? The show was at the Court Theater, the exact same theater where he had failed that musical audition 30 years prior. Talk about a crazy full circle. It really boils down to this crucial difference. Pretty much everyone has the training and the talent to succeed, really. You can study, you can prep, you can be naturally gifted, but the actual differentiator, the secret sauce, it's just having the guts to fail. Because if you aren't failing, you aren't even trying. If you want something you've never had, you gotta do something you've never done. You have to have the guts to look a little foolish while you're busy learning how to be great. Finally, Section 5, what will you give? Taking all these risks, it isn't just about snagging a great job or achieving some sort of personal wealth. It's really about sharpening your unique gifts through all those failures, so you can turn around and give back to a world that desperately needs exactly what you have. The speaker talks about returning from South Africa, seeing the extreme poverty there, but quickly points out that Africa is just the tip of the iceberg. The Middle East needs your help. Japan needs your help. Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, Philadelphia. The world is hurting, and it needs a lot. And it needs it from you, the next generation. The sheer scale of what the world needs requires your energy, your resilience, and the crazy courage of people who are willing to fall forward. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, what in the world could I possibly give? The beautiful message here is that it's not about how much you have, it's about what you have. Some of you might be business majors, nurses, sociologists. Maybe your gift is something tangible, like money or treasures. Or maybe your gift is your time, your talent, your prayers. Maybe it's your patience, your kindness, your love, or even the ability to stick it out through long suffering. Literally, every single person watching this has something incredibly valuable to offer to those places we just mentioned. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a really provocative double question to chew on. First, what are you going to do with what you have? Are you going to clutch it safely to your chest, or are you going to risk it to make an actual impact? And second, how many ghosts are going to be standing around your bed when your time finally comes? I want to challenge you today to step outside that comfortable little box. Take the big risks. Embrace the messy, zigzagging paths. Don't let yourself get discouraged, never hold back, and give this life absolutely everything you've got. And remember, when you fall throughout life, and you will fall, make sure you always, always fall forward.